Game week 15 was pretty average for me. I ended on 55 points and have a small red arrow down to 268k overall. And here is my team selection going into game week 16. All right, so we're going to start just by quickly looking at how my team got on in game week 15. I already went through most of this on my transfer plans video I got out on Monday. So the only player at that time that hadn't played was Nori, who thankfully got an assist in that West Ham game. So I actually got some points from Nori. And to be honest, he completely saved my game week from being a total disaster. I also think I kind of got away with one there with Cunha not returning. I don't have him in my team, of course, and Bowen absolutely killed me, to be fair, with his haul. But thankfully, he's not that popular around my ranks, so it didn't really punish me too much. Sanchez, Timber and Aina being my other defenders. I am really looking at getting rid of Rob Sanchez. I know I've only just brought him in, but the doubts around his minutes, and I thought Chelsea would be better defensively than they have been. And he's got Brentford coming up, which I don't really like as a fixture either. And I know that's very short-term thinking. The Chelsea fixtures are fantastic, so that's why I'm not definitely settled on it yet. I'll certainly think about that one. Timber, he actually missed training this week for Arsenal, which is a little bit of a worry. We'll see when I go through my team selection exactly what my plans are with him. Aina with a one-pointer. Rogers, Semenyo and Dibbling blanking in my midfield. I got the captaincy wrong, although getting it wrong is a harsh statement, I think, because I had the choice between Haaland against Crystal Palace away and Palmer against Tottenham away. And by keeping Haaland as I did, I thought, well, if there's ever a better time, there's never going to be a better time, basically, to captain him than it was in game week 15. You know, with Salah being out against Everton, who was definitely going to be by far and away the most popular captain, I thought he was. And until Spurs gave away those two stupid penalties, I thought it would have been a good thing. You know, he got his goal, was very happy with that. And then to see Sarr and Basuma foul for those penalties, just, yeah, it's ridiculous, really. That's obviously where Palmer got his 2 goals from. That's not to take away from the Palmer performance against Spurs. I thought he was a little bit quiet in that first half, but second half he looked like the Cole Palmer that we all know and love and had an absolutely brilliant game. Isak with a goal. My transfers last week, actually, I did Mbumo and Wood to Semenyo and Isak. Obviously, Mbumo to Semenyo didn't really work out at all. Mbumo hauled and Semenyo blanked. And then Wood to Isak. You know, they both scored the same points in game week 15, but I think longer term, Isak is the better option because I've seen the quality of chances that Forest have been creating for Chris Wood. He is doubling the XG that he's putting up in terms of goals scored as well as Chris Wood. So I think he's a great finisher, don't get me wrong, but I think that level of XG over performance is just not, you know, he's not going to keep doing that. So I think Isak is definitely the better option. Happy to have him in my team. João Pedro, another blank for him. He's been a bit of a nightmare since he came into my team. I actually worked out that selling Raul Jimenez for João Pedro has actually netted me so far minus points. Raul Jimenez has outscored João Pedro in that time. But it is what it is. That's my team, as it did in Game Week 15. So I mentioned potentially getting rid of Rob Sanchez, and I'm looking at goalkeepers, expected points for the next 5 game weeks. Top, we've got Alisson, followed by Raya, Ortega, and then it's Rob Sanchez. So he is the 4th top goalkeeper for expected points over the next 5 game weeks, and he is the best goalkeeper that I think I can realistically afford. I've got 0.6 million in the bank, as you can see on this screen here, in 2 free transfers. But I don't want to absolutely break the bank on a goalkeeper by going for Raya or Alisson. I think I want to keep it a little bit cheaper. I don't trust Ortega in that Man City defence. And then below him, there's Martinez, Forster and Sal. So looking at expected points alone, you know, Sanchez seems good enough, right? But I do worry about that Brentford fixture coming up. You know, Brentford have been really good at scoring goals this season. Pants defensively, but they've not struggled at all scoring goals. And I think Chelsea are going to struggle to keep a clean sheet against them. My other alternative, and I've been banging on about him in pretty much every video, I think Onana will be the top scoring goalkeeper come the end of the season in FPL. And I should probably live by that, really, and bring him into my team when it's appropriate. But it's not appropriate, I don't think, to do that for Game Week 16 because he's got Man City away. I can't bring myself to buy a goalkeeper who's playing Man City away. So I am really considering Onana as probably my #1 replacement, even though that doesn't tie up with the expected points we saw there, probably because of those Man City and Liverpool fixtures, to be honest. But I keep banging on about him probably being the best goalkeeper in the game, so I think I should probably bite the bullet and buy him at some point. And another defender that I'm quite liking the look of as well, you can see with my team here and how it got on, I've got Aït-Nouri, Aina, and Colwill as my sort of 4.5-ish million defenders. I think Kerkez over the next 6-7 game weeks is probably the best defender in the game at this price point. West Ham, Man United is obviously a tough one. Then he's got Crystal Palace, Fulham, and Everton. I think those are 4 pretty decent fixtures around the Man United one. And he's pretty good from an attacking perspective. And I'd actually say Bournemouth have slightly underperformed defensively, as in they've kept less clean sheets than they probably should have done. You can see there we've got some, I think these are Opta stats, and there's an expected clean sheet figure there of 5.02. And he's only kept 2 in that time. So that suggests that Bournemouth are probably better defensively than the stats are suggesting. I think he's great from an attacking perspective. Seems to be nailed on. I really like him as an option. But I've got to be honest, all of those moves for this week in particular feel a little bit luxury. The one player I am concerned about is Timber, who missed training this week. Ultimately, I don't feel like we're going to get any news from Arteta at all on him. Whether that's a case of him actually being injured or whether that's a case of just him being rested, because he's going to be so important to that Arsenal team, right? I don't think there's not a best Arsenal 11 at the moment that doesn't have him in it. And it could either be, it could be that he's injured, or it could be that Arteta is literally just giving him a rest because he's played quite well, played a lot of minutes, and he just wants to make sure he doesn't get injured. So I think I'm in 2 minds about whether Timber will play in Game Week 16. And I think ultimately I've got Colwill, who's got Brentford, and Greaves on my bench, who has Wolves. And I don't think it's worth a transfer to take Timber out as opposed to just bringing one of those guys in off my bench. So ultimately, if Timber doesn't play, Colwill, Greaves, happy for either of them really to come off the bench. Other side of that, we've got Aït-Nouri, who I think the best result rather than his assist in Game Week 15 was the fact he didn't get a yellow card. So that means he should be able to play against Ipswich and hopefully maybe keep a clean sheet, get some attacking returns in that one. I've gone with Aina over Colwill purely because Colwill does have more expected points, but I kind of want to spread my risk around the defence a little bit. Like I said, I'm not massively confident in Chelsea keeping a clean sheet against Brentford. And I wouldn't rule out Forest being able to keep a clean sheet against pretty much anyone, particularly at home. So for that reason, I've started Aina over Cole. And yeah, like I said, if Timber doesn't play, I'll be pretty comfortable having someone come off a bench. So I don't want to make a transfer here. On to my midfield then of Palmer, Salah, Semenyo and Rodgers. And ultimately, I just don't think I can make a transfer here. Not necessarily very happy with all of them, but around Semenyo and Rodgers' price points, I just don't think there's an alternative that's good enough to use a transfer just yet. Semenyo, I'm a little bit disappointed with that transfer, but it's only 1 week. I always think, I did Mbumo to Semenyo last week. I always think with 1 week, it's not long enough to judge a transfer, basically. And if you're making a transfer, you probably should judge it over a course of at least 3 to 5 game weeks, really. So I'll leave the judgment out on Semenyo for now. We'll let him have his blank in Game Week 15 and hope. There's a good chance, I think, that he can produce something against West Ham. Palmer and Salah obviously aren't going to leave my team. The one player I'm slightly worried about, although he scored the last time I said I was slightly worried about him, so maybe I should keep saying I'm worried about him, is Rodgers. He's got Forest away, Man City and Newcastle in his next 3. And the fact that he's playing Forest away and Newcastle away make me think those are particularly tough fixtures. In fact, I would actually put his chances, in my mind, his goal scoring odds in the Nottingham Forest and Newcastle games lower than the Man City ones. And it suggests that as well in the expected points. I think that's a couple of really tough fixtures for Rodgers. But can I bring myself to get rid of him? I don't think I can. So these 4 midfielders are going to stay as they are. So moving on to the forward line, Haaland, Isak and João Pedro. Again, I don't really think it's worth replacing any of these. I do realise, though, that I've got Haaland in my team at the moment, right? He's gone down to 14.9 million, actually, after the time I made these graphics. And I think I've made my bed with Haaland. I said this last week. I think I've made my bed with him now, and I've just got to lie in it and have to... Yeah, I've just got to keep him in my team because I think having him as a differential at this point in time is quite valuable. Again, I guess the only thing is, he only is really worth it as a differential if I'm going to captain him. And I look at the next 3 game weeks, and this week is probably the most likely I would be to captain him, to be fair. Aston Villa away compared to Palmer playing Everton, and then Everton at home compared to Salah playing Leicester. I'm just not sure that there are enough chances there to captain him. But like I said, I think I've made my bed and I've got a lie in it now and just take him as a differential, really. Isak and João Pedro alongside him. I think Isak is probably the second best striker in the game right now. So I'm very happy to have him. And João Pedro, still for me, he's my favourite of those budget sub 6 million forwards. So yeah, very happy to have him in my team. That Brighton Crystal Palace game is obviously kind of both teams' derbies. I just feel like that could be a cagey game. I'm not sure he's going to score, but I'm hoping for a cheeky penalty, maybe an assist, something like that. I'm not sure we're going to get a haul out of him in that game. But again, like I said, even though I transferred Raul Jimenez out for him and Raul Jimenez has outscored him, I still believe that João Pedro is the best striker at that price point. I've been showing this shortlist in my transfer plans in team selection videos of recent, and I've added a couple more players onto this list. I didn't actually speak about Enzo as a potential player I could bring in my midfield, purely because at this stage I just don't think it's worth transferring out a Rodgers or a Semenyo yet. But he's definitely on my radar. He's putting up good minutes, good numbers for Chelsea. Chelsea obviously playing really well, and they have an amazing fixture run coming up. And alongside Enzo, I do really like Iwobi as well of Fulham. Didn't necessarily get the returns against Arsenal, but it was Arsenal. He's been looking really strong for Fulham as well. So I think I've added a couple of sub 6 million midfielders there to potentially replace Semenyo or Rodgers if I need it. You know, Enzo could potentially come in for Rodgers and Iwobi could come in for Semenyo if I needed those replacements. I must say, when bringing in Semenyo last week, I was a little bit worried about just locking myself into two budget midfielders. But seeing that we've got Iwobi and Enzo, who are both performing well at the moment, gives me a little bit of confidence that if I need to get rid of Semenyo or Rodgers, if they get injured, for example, you know, there's a couple of solid replacements I could bring in their place. The rest of the shortlist is the same from the transfer plans video. I'm not going to go through all the players there, but I just wanted to add the additions of Enzo and Iwobi because I think they're two great options at that cheap midfield price point. And finally, I think the last decision to make on this team is captaincy. And right now, I know Palmer is leading in terms of expected points, but my gut feeling is that Salah is going to be the best captain. I could also go for Haaland, don't get me wrong. I mean, if I want to be different, I could go for him, but I just think Salah's points potential is higher, although Haaland does love a game against Man United. And Man United have still, under their new manager, still not looked great, right? I think with Salah, he is just more consistent than Palmer. I think Palmer on his day could potentially outscore Salah, but there are times this season where he's just done nothing and completely blanked, whereas Salah, he is averaging a double-digit haul every game that he plays. He's averaging over 10 FPL points this season. And I think he's got 10 or 11 double-digit hauls in the 15 game weeks that have been played so far. So the guy is mega consistent. And yeah, I think he's going to be the most popular captain. And I think I'm going to go with him as my captain this week. Although, as always, I reserve the right to change it on my deadline stream on Saturday morning. But I think as things stand, Salah is going to be my captain. And ultimately, I'm going to roll 2 free transfers, 0.6 in the bank. That'll turn into 3 next week, providing there's no drastic injuries in the Champions League this week. You know, I think my team will remain as it is. I just don't see a desperate need to make a transfer just yet. But like I said, Iwobi, Enzo Fernandez, potentially eyeing them up to replace Semenyo and Rodgers. Particularly Rodgers with that tough fixture run, you know, and Semenyo if he continues to keep disappointing me. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there's any changes you'd make to my team this week. You know, I've got 2 free transfers, could be potentially something I do there. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear it if you've got any thoughts. Ultimately though, I think rolling is probably the best decision for me. And if you haven't already and want to see more videos from me, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.